trade you ever made. She said she once traded intestinal discomfort for a cultural experience. Please welcome Liz Wright.
Yeah!
Come on, Chicago.
Go Liz!
I arrived at the top secret location with a bike and my uncle. And the first thing I could notice that I couldn't take my mind off of was how many exposed knees were all around me. I'd just gotten back from a year of volunteer teaching abroad, because in my early 20s I seemed to decide two things. The first was that I wanted to save the world. And the second was that I wanted to live and move to as many places as I could, particularly places that were really, really obscure. So naturally, being from Chicago, the first place I moved was called Oregon. So I was there for a few years, that was fine, and I was over there and I heard about this program that would allow me to teach in the Republic of the Marshall Islands.
Go Liz!
I'd never heard of the Republic of the Marshall Islands, so this was a perfect fit for me. So I applied, got accepted. Within a few weeks, they sent me some program literature. For those of you who don't know, the Republic of the Marshall Islands is in a part of the Pacific called Micronesia. Okay? So a lot of people know Polynesia, and they think of hula dancing and grass skirts. Well, Micronesia is like Polynesia's embarrassing cousin. Like, it's lesser known, not as many people want to go there. So that's Micronesia. And I began to read this literature about the Republic of the Marshall Islands. And they called it the Living and Teaching Guide, what I could expect during this upcoming year. And the thing that surprised me the most was that women were expected to wear muumuus almost all the time, despite the fact that, as you might presume, this country is on the equator. I was required to wear a muumuu. Even if I decided, and most women don't make this choice, but even if I would dare to decide to go swimming, I would be swimming with my muumuu on. And so I decided, I'm going to be living on an island, and I've seen the movie Castaway. I'm just going to go big, and I'm going to become Island Girl. So when I started thinking about what I was going to pack, I got to play that game that people sometimes play, like, if I was stuck on a deserted island, what would I bring? What would I need to survive? Except I got to play this game in reverse. So I'm going to be stuck on a desert island called Guji Goo. Real name, I swear. And what am I not going to pack? And I decided this was the time to trade all of my Western vanity and my hang-ups, and I wasn't going to bring a razor, a hairbrush, conditioner, jewelry, makeup, obviously. And so I packed for my trip, and none of those things made the cut. And I arrived in the Marshall Islands. It was hotter than I could have even imagined. And I bought my first muumuus. And during orientation, they took special care to talk to all of the girls about their knees. The knees in the Marshall Islands are a very sexual part of the body. And they likened it to if a woman in the US were walking around completely topless. If a woman shows her knees, it's very, very taboo. And so they went on to explain that even when you're wearing your muumuu and your long dresses and skirts, you needed to always have other layers underneath the muumuu. Because it should appear that a woman only has one giant leg until well below the knees, and then it's okay for the leg to split into two legs. So it was also during orientation that I found out a little bit of trivia about my particular island that I was soon to be shipping off to, and that was that the queen of my island had a particular distaste for Western dress. And had been known to approach women who she thought weren't dressed appropriately and strip their clothes off of them until they were naked in public. And this concerned me. I didn't like the idea that there was a queen just wandering around among the normal people and that I might not know that she was the queen. And I didn't like that she was potentially policing my attire. But spoiler alert, I made it through the entire year and I did not get assaulted by the queen. Sorry if you thought that's where that was going. But something else happened while I was over there, and it wasn't what I expected. I had gone over there thinking, I'm going to be so empowered, I'm going to give up all this stuff that I really don't need, and I know I don't need it, and I'm going to be around people who I've never met, and it doesn't matter. And what I found was that my interactions with the Marshallese were so superficial that oftentimes the first impression was the only impression that I got to make on these people, because I couldn't speak their language. And I was pretty socially awkward, not really knowing what to say, so a lot of times the conversation would be hello, hello, goodbye, goodbye. And in Marshallese, that's all the same word. So that turned out to be the hardest part of my year in the Marshall Islands. And obviously I'm standing before you, so I survived the ordeal. When I got back to Chicago, I was having lunch with my family, and my uncle mentioned there was going to be a naked bike ride throughout downtown Chicago. And I decided, why not? I need to get a bike. So I arrived at the naked bike ride. Like I said, it was all knees everywhere. I mean, there was other stuff too, but a whole lot of knees. That was the biggest thing for me. And I found a body painting table, and I studied the colors for a little bit. And I picked out some orange, and I created like a diagonal stripe across my torso for the sunset. And I did a white stripe for the sunrise. I created a 24-point white star representing the sun and also the 24 inhabited islands that are in the Marshall Islands. And then the rest of my torso was blue. And as I rode through the streets of downtown Chicago with a Marshallese flag painted on my body, I finally felt beautiful again. And then I had the thought, if only the Queen could see me now. Thank you.
One more time, come on. You'd be surprised, but they don't have muumuus that are big and tall.